Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly-past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're
the failure
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. I'm Alex Armstrong along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Peter Barnes and Kai Wilshaw. Tonight on the show...
Can Harry sink any lower?
Unveiling Blair's biggest plot yet to control you.
And Andrew Marr thinks you're a borderline racist.
Keir Starmer is set to end democracy.
And the anti-trans lobby are the real snowflakes.
Yeah, it's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Yeah, welcome to the Saturday 5. It's been another big week of news, hasn't it, everybody? Tony Blair has declared that the government should scrap net zero and replace it with carbon capture. That's just days after Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner reportedly teamed up to save it. Frankly, with that much hot air involved, carbon capture might not be a bad option. In a Daily Mail article, Boris Johnson has said last night's Tory vote shows they could win the election. Ridiculous, isn't it?
Thanks, Boris.
Unfortunately, he wrote his article before his wife told him that he was looking at the poll upside down. Yes. Vatican firefighters have installed a chimney on the roof of the Sistine Chapel. That's in preparation for next week's conclave that will see the election of a new pope. But they were shocked to find that the black and white smoke was replaced by an orange one. That's right, Trump has declared he'd like to be Pope. And yes, before you ask, I didn't make that one. He posted that to Truth Social himself. And finally, as Reform UK celebrates its landslide local election, Ed Davey has also heralded a great night for the Liberal Democrats, claiming they're a serious party in British politics. He made the statement while performing a road polling in front of a polling station, a metaphor perhaps for the Lib Dems' political momentum. Enthusiastic, erratic, but largely ignored. Joining me tonight are the usual suspects. Dr. Renee, who has gone from hoarding antibiotics to withdrawing hay fever tablets instead in her latest attempt to get the nation off of its nanny statery. Will Kingston, everyone's favourite migrants here. He's reportedly seeking permanent asylum given the Labour victory in Australia. Peter Barnes. Yes, he's joined us again. He's the only Tory left in the country. Speculations rife. He might throw his hat in the ring for leader of the party. And Kai Wilshire. Welcome back, Kai. I think we missed you last week. He's our resident lefty.
Yeah, we certainly did.
Yeah, many of you will be happy to see him, given the antics on the show last Saturday. Although I do hope you've dried your tears from the Labour wipeout last night, Kai. Of course, we want to know all of your views at home, so send them into gbnews.com/your say. And while you're there, I want you to type this into the comments. Ask us a question, a good question. Keep it sensible, and we will read it out for our show.
Dad. No.
I've got to keep. You know,
You've changed.
I'm hosting here.
Since when?
And vote in the poll as well, because we're asking you to vote on 3 big topics. 1, are the Conservative Party finished following the local election defeat? 2, should net zero projects in the countryside be banned? 3, should Ofsted back off to save teachers' mental health? If you vote, we are going to debate that in our Saturday scrap, so the power's in your hands. But before we start tearing each other apart as usual, it's your Saturday Night News with Sophia Wensler.
Alex, thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines. Nigel Farage has hailed an unprecedented reform win after beating the Tories and Labour at Thursday's local elections. Writing in the Telegraph newspaper, the Reform UK leader said nothing will ever be the same again. Two-party politics at both local and national level is over. Mr Farage called it the death of the Conservative Party as Reform picked up 10 councils and more than 600 seats. And as the Tories faced a Reform UK surge in the north and parts of the Midlands, the Lib Dems put the squeeze on their vote further south, gaining more than 100 councillors. And Liberal Democrats leader Ed Davey celebrated what he called an historic result.
We're absolutely delighted and grateful for all the people who voted for us. We've had historic results. We've never had a majority in Oxfordshire or Cambridgeshire or Shropshire. And here in Wiltshire, we've never been the largest party. So across Middle England, it's the Liberal Democrats gaining from the Conservatives. And I'm just so delighted for the people who work so hard. I now know they're going to work hard for their communities. That's what Liberal Democrats do. We're strong local community champions. And we'll get to work now.
Meanwhile, Labour Minister Lucy Powell has appeared to dismiss the rape gang scandal as a little trumpet during an appearance on BBC Radio 4's Any Question programme last night. During a discussion around councils with political commentator Tim Montgomery, she brushes off the topic of the rape gangs. When Montgomery asks if she has seen the Channel 4 documentary about the rape gangs, she replies, "Oh, we want to blow that little trumpet now. Let's get the dog whistle out." The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has congratulated Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on his election victory. The centre-left Labour government claimed victory today after a tense election shaped by concerns over housing, the cost of living and the shadow of Donald Trump. Voters swung in favour of Albanese, the incumbent Prime Minister, over the opposition Liberal National Coalition led by Peter Dutton. Elsewhere, Donald Trump has again jokingly suggested that he would like to be the next pope by posting a spoof image of himself. The US president published an AI-generated photograph of himself dressed in the papal regalia on his Truth Social platform. The picture depicting the president draped in white robes wearing a gold crucifix comes just 11 days after the death of Pope Francis. And 5 people have been rescued after spending 36 hours in an alligator-infested swamp in the Amazon after a plane was forced to make an emergency landing there. The small plane was found by local fishermen in Bolivia's Amazonas region on Friday, having been missing for 48 hours. Everyone on board, 3 women, a child and the 29-year-old pilot, were rescued from their perch on top of the capsized plane in what emergency services called an excellent condition. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Yes, welcome back to the Saturday 5. Over the next 3 hours, the biggest debates, hottest topics and entertaining interviews are coming your way. I just want to read out one quick comment before we get started. It says here, Anne Carslake says, seriously, Kai, never thought I'd say this, but we really did miss you last week. Right, well, there you go. The first for you, Kai.
I've just been told we all need a shave.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
I think you're exempted, Renee.
All right, I'm going to take us from here on the first debate tonight. Are you a borderline racist? That's the slur the liberal media elite hurled at millions of decent, patriotic Brits last night, just hours after Reform UK stormed to a local election landslide.
Other times they sound very almost like old Labour, pro-worker, pro-nationalisation, pro-reindustrialisation, and of course at other times some of them can sound pretty borderline racist and talk about endlessly about immigration and the danger of people from other cultures coming in.
How dare you? How dare you smear ordinary people who are raising real, uncomfortable truths about the damage unchecked immigration, legal and illegal, is doing to our country. They're watching their communities transformed without any consent. Their wages are being undercut. Their values are being sidelined. And when they speak up, they're mocked and maligned by men like Andrew Marr, a BBC relic from the Oxbridge Club, tucked away in some North London bubble, latte in hand, lecturing the rest of us from behind a velvet microphone. He doesn't speak for Britain, he speaks at it. Reform UK has surged to a 30% national vote share in the local elections, not because Nigel Farage plays some kind of pantomime villain, but because the Tories betrayed the electorate and failed to deliver. And Labour, let's be honest, have turned their backs on the working classes and instead have embraced the wealthy Oxbridge elites like Andrew. The truth is that Reform is rising because people are fed up of being gaslit, smeared and lied to by the people they trusted this country with. Reform is on the rise, whether they like it or not. And Nigel Farage is now odds on to be the next Prime Minister. But whether or not Farage ends up being PM, one thing is certain. People are waking up.
You know what I find extraordinary about this is we've seen now with Brexit, with Trump 1.0, with Trump 2.0, in Australia you had the voice referendum, this tactic that the left continues to pull out of just calling anyone that they disagree with racist, hateful bigots obviously doesn't work. It alienates people, and yet for some reason they just can't help themselves. They still keep doing it.
The reason they do it is because they can't defend anything that they've done, so they have to label people as racist to kind of box them off and to say we don't have to deal with them. The problem is when the next election comes round, the people you've spent 5 years calling a racist are never going to vote for you. That's what happened.
That's right.
But when you say, like, you know, there's been this great landslide and this all the rest of it, when you look at the data, it's not there. I'm sorry, it's not. The Reform Party have less of a mandate than Keir Starmer does, and every person is sat here. Come on, let's go. But yeah.
Before I give it over to Kai, that is an absolutely ludicrous
No,
statement.
it's not.
The Tories
No,
just
it's
had
not.
an absolute obliteration in their homeland. They're completely toast.
Yeah, I'm not denying that, but that doesn't make the other thing any less true.
They just had a 30%.
I'm sorry, a revolution is not started by 3 men in a whippet. It's not. It's not there. And if there are huge problems.
I think
people are brushing over these problems that Reform have because you don't want to admit that this is nothing but a reactionary party. These elections proved it. Because where are
any party that Nigel Farage has led in history?
Well, that tells you everything about Nigel Farage, then, doesn't it?
Interesting about this. Kai is shaking his head at that. That's the most interesting thing that's happened.
You've known since we've been on this show, right, that I've said Farage and reform cannot be underestimated. And I come from a Labour Party perspective. Frankly, those elections on Thursday were disastrous for the Labour Party and cataclysmic for your
absolutely
guys.
the other way round.
So,
the other way round.
In Runcorn and Helsby, they overturned a Labour majority of 14,000.
Yeah.
These are
these are
standing results.
Yeah.
So the fact that you...
But then my point... I'm not... I didn't dismiss the victories. My point is, there are other things that we should be talking about within reform that these results show. They show, for example, they have made no ground in Remain areas. Everything they've won is Brexit. You know, they've made no real steps to actually opening up to get a wider base that they need to win a general election. That isn't there. This is the conversation reformers should be having.
I want to get back to... Go on, Renee, and I want to come back to something on...
I want to come back to migrants because this was your point, OK, that we're being gaslit. I read a story this week about a young woman who was raped by a migrant who went back to his migrant hotel afterwards. My immediate thoughts on that were, if he was in a detention centre that he couldn't leave, or if he'd had never arrived in the first place, that woman would never have been raped. And that's what we're dealing with.
Can I just ask you this question? Because this is Andrew Marr's words. You know, they're sometimes borderline racist. Is he right?
At times, some of them are borderline racist.
Answer the question. Is he right?
You talked about having talked about uncomfortable truths. We can have a conversation about the difficulty...
You can say yes or no.
...migrants being in this country and the issues that brings, but also you can have a conversation about some of the borderline racist things that some of us all think.
Well, that's the thing.
Let's have that conversation.
Hang on. No. We need to clarify this because he's specifically talking about Reform UK, political party, which I have seen no evidence of racism. There's zero. In fact, otherwise they'd be taken to court, wouldn't they be arrested? Where have they been borderline racist?
In this country, there has been an over-focus on some of the key immigration issues and specifically talking about migrants and illegal immigrants as well in a way that dehumanises them and doesn't contribute to public debate, but actually can seem racist. I think that's fair to say.
The great irony of this is that most people who support reform don't care about race. They care about culture, whereas the left are absolutely obsessed with race. It is the only prism through which that they look at the world, and that is why they smear other people as racist, because they can't think in any other way.
But I think Nigel Farage has done more to destroy parties like the BNP and others that are emerging now than any political leader in modern history.
And to the extent
to see they are even bored, because this is the problem, isn't it? Is that we're constantly told that talking about, and we saw that when Nigel Farage spoke in the House of Commons this week, they had the MP sitting behind him, tutting and shaking his head when he said they are diluting our culture. This is damaging our country, which it is by every single data
Culture is the key word.
Our culture is dilapidating. Our jobs at lower wages. Housing is through the roof. Wait lists on the NHS are up. These are all due to mass immigration by Peter's party and your party.
But that's exactly why Peter's argument is completely wrong, because Nigel Farage has actually brought the Reform Party into the mainstream. No, Yes, he has.
He hasn't. I'm sorry, it's still not a mainstream party.
Let me finish, Peter. Some of the things you're saying are... You're telling us that the sky is red.
No, I'm not. I'm actually asking you to realise the sky is blue.
Any reasonable person can see that what you're saying is absolutely
because the problem is you're only looking at the surface issues. We've got to look beyond this, because, yes, people look at things through the reformers look at it as culture. However, the rest of the electorate don't. This is the thing that people have to get into the mind. Yeah, it is. But however, you've got to start changing that conversation. However, reform seem to be running around promising the sky, and yet I'm seeing no policies, no plans, nothing. It is sticky plastic. It's not 4 years. You've got people running around saying he's going to be the next Prime Minister. They should have something.
Peter, as the mother of a mixed-race child, I am constantly being called a racist because I call these things out, which is palpably untrue. I wouldn't have a mixed-race child. So it just demonstrates that actually it's the weaponisation of language to tell me to shut up.
I totally agree with you, Renee. I mean, this is what... And look, the public are rejecting it en masse, aren't we? We are saying, we don't care. You put all the smears out you like, it's not going to stop us, and it hasn't so far. Anyway, still to come tonight. Should Labour abandon their net zero mission, as Tony Blair has told them? But next... Prince Harry is still in the headlines, isn't he? And after losing his recent legal battle, he's now saying the King is ignoring him. Big stuff to come tonight. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic flypast.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Oh, it's been a fiery start to the Saturday 5 tonight, hasn't it? Please keep your questions and comments coming on gbnews.com/yoursay. And I've got loads, by the way, for Ask the 5. And please keep those coming because I will read them out later in the show. So, yeah, we love hearing from you. Just, I'm not shaving my beard, all right? I will look like 5. I'll look 5 years old. Anyway, it's time for our next
Kai
debate.
has admitted that I'm going to win my vote on the Senate.
Well, you have to get that in there. There's a bet between Renee and Kai whether Reform will win the Senate in Wales, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that one. It's time for our next debate, though. Who's up next?
I'll take this one. Alex, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another round of the Is Harry malicious or just incredibly thick game. As an aside, when I put that out on Twitter, the overwhelming response was both. I've always thought the latter. I've always thought he's just a bit of a thicko who doesn't really understand the consequences of his actions. I've changed my position this week to the former. I think he is malicious, I think he is dangerous, and I think he is a threat to the monarchy. This comes after an extraordinary BBC interview that he did this week after his case in the courts to try and squeeze money out of the taxpayers failed. We have that clip ready to go. Let's see it.
I would love reconciliation with my family. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile. If they don't want that, that's entirely up to them.
There were several other extraordinary moments, and here's the thing. Harry knows. He must know that there is a long-standing principle in the royal family that they don't air their dirty laundry in public. He knows that these sorts of comments would hurt the king. He knows that the media, yes, including GB News, picks up this sort of stuff and speculates upon it. He does it anyway for his own ego and his own self-gratification. Now, in times gone by, strong leaders in this country dealt with unruly family members by chopping their heads off. Now, for better or worse, times have moved on, but there is something that this king, if he has guts, still can do, and that is strip this grifter of his titles immediately, as well as his grifter wife, because they do not deserve them.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because we heard earlier on that, I mean, there's lots of speculation about this, but I did hear from a commentator earlier on that Prince William, should I say, is furious and is considering, when he becomes king, of stripping them both of the title, that his father won't do it.
They have to do it as an act of parliament.
Well, that'd be interesting, and I think that'd be interesting to see whether or not he'd push the government to do it. But, Kai, what do you think of good old Meg's and Harry? Bit of your ilk?
You know,
they whine enough, don't they?
I enjoyed hearing Will saying that royal decapitation, was, there are pros and cons.
Can we have it as an option for the scrap tonight?
Only you could pull that off, Will. I mean, look, the royal family aren't blameless in this either. And actually, this story was sad.
What?
This story was sad on a lot of levels because, on the one hand, Harry is clearly weaponising some of these issues and worries that people have about the king's health for his own benefit. But the royal family also are weaponising time with his father. I mean, you had those three options. Is he malicious or is he just plain thick? I would put it to you, there's a third option. He's very damaged. I think a lot of them are damaged.
Yeah,
and it's really just so awful and such an indictment on the royal family and the system that we have that somebody can come to this point and still not have any time with his father, possibly.
But Kai, here's the thing. We're all damaged in one way or the other, and it doesn't excuse you for being a...
It's not a stretch when Queen of England dies in a car crash. I know what you're saying.
No, I don't think we're quite in the public eye as much as the royal family, right?
Go on, Peter.
No, so for me, when it comes to all of this stuff, everything I know about Harry and Meghan is completely involuntary. I don't seek this stuff out. People tell it me, and I wish they wouldn't. But it does seem to me that Harry just seems to be one of those people who was raised without hearing the word no. And now, when actual things happen to him that are outside of his control, and it is a negative thing, he reacts like a 4-year-old child.
Yeah.
And it is very clear that this is a kind of arrested development syndrome where he is so infantilized and he has been pampered and been told everything is going to be wonderful that when it's not, he has no resilience to get over it. So therefore he has to kind of get over it. Like, he has to scream and act like this kind of 4-year-old having a tantrum.
I think he's damaged in many ways. I think losing his mother obviously did have a major effect on him. Walking behind that coffin was a terrible thing. But I think also he has that unenviable role of being the spare to the heir.
Yeah.
Some people, like Princess Anne, handle it well. Others don't. Andrew, now Harry. And I think, unfortunately, he met a very clever, manipulative woman who knew his triggers, knew how to work him. And since then, by all accounts, he's turned into this vicious, damaged, everybody...
I disagree with you there, Renee. I think he was a willing participant in this from day one. I don't think he needed any, push to go into this. I think he was very willing to find somebody who agreed with him, and he's run with it. Let's not forget, he wrote the book. Yeah. He's been a very willing participant, and I don't think this manipulation argument, I don't think it's there. Really.
Yeah, I do think Meghan has pushed his boundaries and said, you can do this, I've got this LA contact here, we can do that. I do think she has led him down a certain path. What I will say about that interview that really shook me to my core was his comments on the King's health, saying, I don't know how much longer my father will be with us. Now, I can understand from a child-son relationship that you would speculate on those things. However, the King is the head of state. This is not appropriate under any royal protocol to talk about. Because now there is...
anyone's protocol.
Exactly, it's no one's business. But to say that on a broadcaster that's going to go out to the entire British nation, we're all going to be speculating now on whether the King is as well as we think he is.
But it's also the hypocrisy of making a stand on privacy and at the same time violating the privacy of the King so flagrantly.
But also, that BBC interview was not set up yesterday afternoon after his court case came in.
That's a very good point.
That has been set up for weeks.
That's a very good point.
He knew he was going to lose. He knew he was going to
go.
He was told that basically not to pursue this any further, time after time after time, and he blatantly ignored it because, as I said, he's never been told no. And so he was kind of trying to get around this before it kind of blew up in his face. But do have to admit, it is a bit rich for him to talk about time with his father when he has deliberately kept the grandchildren away from the king.
So true.
There is a double standard yet again with those two.
Those poor kids wouldn't. I mean, I hope they didn't get to meet King Charles, because it's not their fault. They didn't choose that. They were born into that family, and it's not fair that they are withholding those children from him. And also, you know, I think back to the deal that Meghan did with the Queen when we had Megxit, saying that she wouldn't use the HRH title. She's out there signing pieces of letters off to people at HRH. How abysmal is that, to go back on your word to a monarch? I mean, how low have you got to?
It's the commercialising of their royal titles, but not doing anything at all to actually deserve them.
Yes. Anyway, the rest of the show is still coming up, and as Tony Blair urges the Prime Minister to change course on net zero, can't it be any clearer that Labour have got it wrong? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. Don't go anywhere.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're heading south for some holiday sunshine, the best bet is Greece at the moment, sunny spells, also fine in Italy, but Iberia continues on the same theme that we've seen during the last few months. Low pressure, spells of rain and showers, especially for parts of Portugal, northwest Spain, and into the south of France, some heavy downpours, those reaching northern Italy. But for the rest of Italy, cloudy spells, but otherwise largely dry, mostly fine in Greece, and it continues that way next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. High pressure in charge, turning quite chilly tonight. The winds are switching direction to a northerly airstream, so filtering cold air all the way down from the Arctic across the country. You can see that in the pressure pattern, but with high pressure largely nearby, many places will be dry, and it's a dry evening and night to come across much of the country, though that northerly breeze does bring showers across northeast Scotland, down the eastern coast of England through the night. Elsewhere, dry with clear spells, and it will turn quite chilly, a much widely chilly night compared to of late. Temperatures in single figures, a touch of frost for the Glens of Scotland, perhaps the countryside of Northern Ireland as well. But a sunny start here away from the east coast, whilst it will be quite chilly and cloudy here with showers. So if we take a look at the details first thing Sunday morning, frequent showers across Orkney and Shetland down into eastern Scotland. Showers falling as snow over the higher ground. Sunny for western Scotland, largely dry with sunny spells for Northern Ireland, Northern England too, but the east seeing those showers which continue to feed down towards East Anglia. But the vast majority of us, it will be a dry start with sunny spells, so rather fresh. And then through the day, showers continue down the eastern side of the UK, but they will become fewer and further between as we move through into the afternoon. But a chilly northerly breeze here, temperatures really struggling 8 to 9 Celsius at best in one or two spots. Best of the sunshine in the west and southwest, where highs will reach around 17 degrees, so much lower compared to what we've seen of late. Another chilly start on Monday morning, some patchy frost in places. Showers a little bit more confined to the southeast through the afternoon on Bank Holiday Monday. Most places dry with sunny spells, best of the sunshine across Scotland, and temperatures again near average. But there are signs it does start to warm up later next week. See you again soon.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. Please get in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. And I've now got 5 or 6 questions for Ask the 5 that you've been sending in, so that's great. And while you're there, this is crucial to this show now, go and vote in the poll, gbnews.com/poll. We're going to be fighting out, we're going to go head-to-head on these questions. Let me read them out for you. What should we go head-to-head on? It is, are the Tories finished? Should net zero projects be banned? And should Ofsted back off? I won't tell you the results yet, so you need to go and vote if you want to see that for yourself. But that's coming up in the next hour. But now it's time for our next debate. Who would like to take it?
Me.
Go on then, Renee.
OK, so anyone who thinks that Tony Blair has changed his mind on net zero hasn't read the report. He still wants it. He just wants it in a slightly different way that allows him to reach his demonic ID cards goal that he's always had. At first glance, the Institute's new climate paper looks like they want to rubbish net zero, and we were all cheering. They said it was economically toxic, it was unworkable, and it was unpopular. Yes. But he wants to change how we get to exactly the same goal of net zero. He's seen the opportunity that he's long dreamt of, using data, AI, automation through a global technocratic control system, and he's going to go for it. His paper recommends that we use AI to control entire society's energy consumption. We use carbon capture technology on steroids, a coalition of major powers, including financiers, engineers and scientists, and redirecting global finance into tech solutions. This is a global plan to manage humanity by managing your lifestyle choices, measuring your energy use and your carbon footprint, and this will lead to controlling your access to energy, food, services and money, depending on how well you behave. To do all of this, ID cards.
So, Renee, I agree with you, and when it comes to Tony Blair, everything comes back to the technocratic surveillance state. He is obsessed with it. But can I add one other thing into the mix? I think Tony Blair, and, you know, whether you love him or hate him, and I don't think he has many supporters at this table or indeed in our audience.
Well, he's definitely got one here.
Well, what's the one, by the way? He is a consummate politician.
Yes.
And he understands the mood of the nation, and he knows that this is toxic, and he knows that it is hurting Labor badly. I think that's a part of it as well.
Yeah, Kai, you've got a demon as a political hero, have you?
I was a big fan of Tony Blair. Look, he led the Labour Party.
What changed in a week?
His rubbishing of net zero. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But actually, the rubbishing of net zero is, I think, just a complete own goal by UK politicians and by the panellists on this show. Frankly, net zero provides an amazing opportunity to re-industrialise parts of the UK that have been left behind and forgotten. No, I do, because actually I come from some of those deprived areas that have been de-industrialised, and this is an opportunity.
Because of net zero policy?
Yeah, exactly. No, that happened decades and centuries ago. Places like the Welsh Valleys that were completely ignored by the English.
It's not just net zero, is it? It's the globalist agenda that people like you have voted for the destruction of your own towns, and in fact, thankfully, most people in Wales are waking up. Well, you have. You've voted for the Labour Party that have globalised mass swathes of this country alongside the Conservatives for record amounts of years. They have thrown their own people under the bus and sold off our power plants, sold off our steel, our national infrastructure.
People in the Welsh Valleys would find that offensive.
Well, I think
they've woken up. Labour governments have been held in the deindustrialisation of the Welsh Valleys.
They have. Throughout history, the Labour Party were responsible for closures of most of the mining industry in this country. The idea that it was the Conservatives is just factually inaccurate. But the one thing I will say that makes the Labour Party more dangerous when it comes to net zero is when they pursue the policies, but they make sure they can never be reversed. So if you look at the steel plants, they make sure they can never be turned back on. There is a kind of, that's it. And it is a very dangerous way, because I think it is not necessarily a policy agenda, it is a religion.
We were talking in the break, there's a bet on here between Kai and Dr. Renee as to whether or not reform will take the Senate. And I just want to clarify my comments. I'm not insulting Welsh people, because I voted Conservative and I've even voted Labour in the past, right? So we've all done it. But people are starting to wake up now and say, I can't keep voting for these people who are selling my country out. Do you think you're going to win that bet?
Absolutely, I'm going to win that bet. I thought it 6 months ago. I think it now. But more importantly, Kai, you know, Labour have been in charge of Wales for what, 20 years? 20 years. It is a crackpot. The NHS is worse. Education is worse. New businesses are worse. Nothing works in Wales any better than anywhere else. So it is everybody who voted in this election to bring in Starmer should have looked at that and thought, oh dear, maybe that's not the best blueprint.
Even the rugby team's falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. But again, but when we look at net zero, I always go back to what Craig McKinley, who was head of the Net Zero Watch, said. He said the moment the public see the cost of it, that is the end of it. So that's the way it's always been. And that's where Blair is very right on this.
Very clever.
And I agree with you, Kai, that he and you know that he is a political operator, be like we haven't seen, and do not underestimate him.
Use it to his advantage, which is what he's going to do.
I say whatever it is, if Tony Blair is advocating for it, you can count me out. OK, moving on. Who'd like to take the next?
I think that's me, isn't it?
Go on then, Peter. Yeah, it is.
So, Germany accepted the migrant invasion, and it was met with terror attacks and sexual crime offences that would make the blood chill. It is absolutely staggering that the German establishment didn't decide to, crack down on the crimes. They cracked down on the opposition, those who were brave enough to put their head above the parapet and say, do you know what? Maybe enough is enough, and maybe we should actually start protecting our borders. It was announced that the German establishment has banned the AfD, a political party that they deemed far right. Doesn't that sound awfully familiar, Keir Starmer? Because we're starting to see that blueprint laid bare here. We're starting to see the opposition labelled. We're starting to see the elevation and protection of one bit of society over another, the two-tier justice system, the sentencing committee. The examples line up and line up and line up. And it is about time that Britain woke up to the fact that we have a government that is willing to overturn democracy. Do not forget that the AfD in Germany won 20% of the vote. And doesn't that sound very familiar, according to Reform? Let's be real. There are parallels are there, and yet we have seen a Prime Minister willing to use the powers of the state to shut things down, and that should terrify us all.
Well, the other thing about this, right, is, again, we're not learning the lessons from history and we're not learning the lessons from other parts of the world. We've seen what happens when you weaponise these things in America, where Trump, the whole legal system being weaponised against him, led to his support going up. This will only do the same thing in Germany.
It does, but this does worry me, because I think we are seeing a move across Europe to completely squash anyone who has anything to say that doesn't fit with this globalist agenda. And it is scary because it is the loss of democracy across a whole continent.
Yeah, completely. For me, it's the fact that free speech is the central tenet of a liberal democracy, your right to criticise. That is the most important thing, and that is being taken away. The right to criticise is so important.
It baffled me. It baffled me when Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, sat down with Donald Trump and JD Vance, and while they were criticising free speech in the UK, because we don't have free speech in the UK, we have freedom of expression. So for Keir Starmer to, first of all, defend something that doesn't exist was, as a lawyer, wrong. Two, to say it after the fact that more people have been locked up for social media and tweets across the riots than there have been in the rape gang scandal, just exposed to me where his head is at, if anything else. Kai, how can you defend him? This is where we're going, isn't it? This is what we're going to be following in their tracks if they keep seeing the losses to reform.
It's not. Can I just clarify Peter's comments? The German establishment has not banned the AfD. The intelligence services have called it an extreme right.
But the implication of it doesn't.
There's an important legal definition, because once you brand something extremist, then the Parliament can vote to get rid of them. Is that not right?
Understood. But it doesn't. And Will was talking about they haven't learned from history. Well, it doesn't take a genius to wonder why the German government is quite worried when a party doesn't consider migrants an equal member of the German society. That's from the report, right? So, let's be very clear. They're not banned. And it's not a judgment on people who are voting for that party.
It is. It is definitely a judgment. The interconnectivity between the security services and the political establishment is clear.
In the same way that the Labour Party of Jeremy Corbyn had very extremist...
Is it not the truth that they are just a threat to the the three established parties that are sort of realising, it's like panicking and going, we better work together to get rid of them because they're going to suck up all of our votes and I'll have a majority in the government without needing a coalition?
It really wouldn't surprise me if our government tried to do this to reform. reform eventually because they're so scared of them. And that's where Europe is going. We saw in France, when people wanted to vote for Marine Le Pen, they were described as racist. She's now not allowed to run in the next elections. This is a pattern of behaviour by governments who are terrified that democracy might work.
Peter, is this the EU is showing its true colours, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
They seem to be locking up and using lawfare to tackle. This is the same what the Democrats did in America, in my opinion, locking up political opposition.
Yeah, they are, because the EU is in decline, and there is nothing more dangerous than an institution like that is on the back foot and feels vulnerable.
Right.
They will lash out and use every power that they have to protect itself, and that's what the EU is doing right across the board, because they see the shift and they know that they are in for a bit of a kicking, and they don't like that because they have plans. And that is, like I said, a very dangerous place for an institution with that amount of power.
Can I just add as well that this isn't about the policies of the AFD. They're run by an ex-Goldman Sachs banker. They're pretty much like a stock standard old right-wing platform.
And she is a lesbian, as far as I understand. Which does really go against the grain of the Nazi, doesn't it?
Exactly. But they're saying there are a few fringe parts of the support base who are, you know, neo-Nazis. I could find you radicals who support the Greens. I can find you radicals who support Labour. But they never call out those people, do they?
We have so-called racists in the Labour Party. I remember having this debate on this show last year before the general election when reform was being called racist. There are racists within, within the Labour Party.
There's a fringe who supports every party.
But it's not true to say that that's never been covered, because the anti-Semitism crisis in Labour rightly was covered, plastered across all the newspapers.
And it's not
Thank God.
And it's not over.
It certainly is, because we kicked them all out to the Greens.
No, you definitely didn't.
You didn't.
OK, very fiery start to the night, guys. But we've still got more coming up here on the Saturday 5, and we have the Saturday scrap coming after 7 o'clock as well. But next, you'll never believe the derogatory term that is being used in official NHS guidance. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. You won't want to miss it.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Say that Mia Collins joins us in the studio now. Morning, Mia. Really good to meet you. And what's it like for you watching that experience back?
Lots of fond memories. I loved my time in the process, and, you know, TV shopping was definitely one of the big highlights for me. I loved it.
Was it really?
Genuinely, I really, really enjoyed it.
Because I wonder how much of these challenges and tasks do you come away from thinking, oh, that was awful?
For me personally, there weren't many occasions where I thought, oh God, you know, what I've been able to do now is look back on all 10 episodes, and I'm actually really happy with my performance, so no regrets.
Consistently strong.
Thank you.
That's why I was so shocked when you went out as number 6. I honestly thought you'd make it through to the final, but it was just that one mistake, wasn't it?
It was the wrong decision at the wrong time. Had it been another task, maybe I would have survived it through, but, you know, it's so difficult to get to that final 5, and Jordan and Anissa are really strong candidates, so I think I just drew the short straw.
I mean, did you go into it thinking this would help you as a business person, or is it a door to get into media, or I mean, what was the point of going on?
I think if you look at the general age of candidates nowadays, it's a younger audience, and I've grown up watching the show. So from my perspective, I'd always just grown up watching it, thinking, God, I really do think I could do that. I am in the midst of prep for my bodybuilding competitions, so my time is very centred around training and trying to get as much content and insight into that as much as I can. I think bodybuilding is one of those sports that not many people know all too much about, and I think there's a few misconceptions of it. So if I can educate people and bring correct information about the sport through means that I enjoy, then so be it. And whatever comes of it, comes of it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk, and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches, and the dramatic fly past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day, all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. It really is the fieriest TV show on Saturday night telly. Please get in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. I'm going to read out some of your comments here. Let's have a quick look. What do we have here? Liz says, what does your resident lefty, and I assume they mean you, Kai, believe Reform UK did so well in the elections? What do you think?
Why did it?
Yeah, why did they do so well?
Well, there's clearly... I think, actually, immigration as an issue is clearly rising up the agenda. The next election is going to be the immigration election. Okay. Now, the question is, do we go for reactionary, knee-jerk policies, or do we try to find some system-wide solution?
Gangs. Yes, that one's definitely working.
Because actually, because what Reform have in their favour is they haven't been in government.
I agree with that.
And so they can propose simple solutions, and it's not a simple fix.
Well,
absolutely.
One more quickly here.
It's definitely not.
Daniel Bagel says Tories aren't done yet. They have hope, but recovery is likely to take 10 years or more. They shouldn't oust their leader either. That behaviour got them into a mess last time. Well, that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons why they lost it. But we've also got the poll that we want you to keep voting on. So the questions are this: are the Conservative Party finished following the local election defeat? Should net zero projects in the countryside be banned? Should Ofsted back off to save teachers' mental health? I'm closing that poll at 7 p.m. and that is going to determine what we debate at the top of the next hour. But now it's time for our next debate. I wonder who it is.
The final debate.
Oh, dear.
Yes, can I just say it's wonderful to be back and wonderful to hear from so many of the viewers. And also, actually, last week I did hear from Siobhan in the Nag's Head in Camberwell also, who's a big fan of the show.
Fantastic.
Ironically, not being on the show is the most popular you've ever been.
Maybe I should do it more often. No, well, they won't like me after this one. Look, my argument here is that the anti-trans lobby are actually the real snowflakes after all. The story in this last week was a controversy around documents in the North East London Foundation Trust that used the word TERF. Now, for those of you who are uninitiated in the latest of the culture wars, TERF means trans exclusionary radical feminists. And lots of the gender critical feminists have kicked off about the fact that this was used in documents. Now, number one, I don't really see how this is controversial. Guidance documents should seek to explain. And frankly, it's important for that guidance to reflect that there are some people who are commonly known as TERFs, who might pose a threat to trans patients, or who might simply disagree with some of the care that is being provided to them. But number two, it's descriptive. This is not a slur. It's sort of offensive to other groups to call this a slur. It describes a radical feminist, which actually is something that most feminists would heartily agree with, who want to exclude trans people from women's only spaces. How is that controversial? And this is just a continuation of the right wing doing exactly what they claimed that the left wing were doing and getting offended over words.
Dr. Renee.
So this right-wing racist turf over here actually just wants my daughter, who's 6, to change in a changing room without having to see a man's private parts. She wants her to be safe. I want to be safe. I want a woman's space. I'm not a radical feminist, actually, by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm a proud TERF, because if that's what you want to call me, you guys, that's fine.
And those are big issues.
But the other words that you people like to use, which are made-up words designed to shut down language. This is what the word TERF is. The other one is cis woman. I'm not a cis woman. I'm just a woman. I was born a woman. I'll always be a woman, whatever I do. The thing is, Kai, this is the NHS. They're saying that they want to ignore the Supreme Court. Good luck with that, guys. And they're using language which is dehumanising to women. That is a disgrace from a national body.
This is the key point here. The context is what matters, because we know that the NHS is ideologically captured by this ideology, and I think it's also a really good reminder that even though the Supreme Court's made the ruling, there's still a big fight. There's still a big fight ahead.
Yeah, and I've seen footage and people protesting by trans men, by the sounds of it, and what I've seen on the footage at least, going into female bathrooms and saying, you aren't going to get me out making a song about it. And you just think, you know, if the right had done that, if someone on the right had done this court ruling had gone the other way, right? How do you think they would have reacted? They would be aggressive, they would be calling the police, and then they don't like it when it's turned on them. This is what I don't understand. And again, the right are just, they've utilised the law. This has been going on since 2004. Women have had to fight this, and they finally got a victory, and yet it's being ignored.
But also, what we mustn't forget is North East London Trust, which is where I trained, so I know it well, has a very poor, white working class and immigrant population. That's who we're dealing with. I don't think any of that population actually gives a damn about any of this. In fact, they probably quite like the traditional man, woman, child unit. What this shows is that the NHS, aside from who they're serving, are completely captured by these lunatics.
Peter, is it a small minority of people, or is this a bigger issue than we are?
It's a much bigger issue, and people could try to narrow it down as this radical little group, and that is simply not true, because you have to look, yes, the NHS is one of the biggest employers in the world. It is the main proponent of the trans ideology. It will do everything in its power to stop this. And it will have a lot of support from the media, from the corporate world. This is the thing. It is fellow travellers, and they all band together. And it's not just in the NHS. We have to look at the charity sector. Let's look at Mermaids and Stonewall, who have been advising government bodies for years on this stuff. And, you know, there's so many other issues that this is going to affect. And it is absolutely staggering to me that the same people over Brexit were saying you can't challenge the courts because, you know, you'll bring down society. Well, isn't it really funny how that narrative goes out the window when it's something you don't like?
So true. Helen here from our comments on GB News USA says, Kai, we missed you, but not about the trans issue. Did you see the shocking trans protest in London? Did you see it? And what did you make of the placards they were holding? Do you think that they aren't the woke ones now?
I did see it, and actually, we've had so many conversations about protests in the last many months, right? You can always find some nut jobs in a protest, whether it's right-wing protests against immigration, whether it's Gaza protests, whether it's trans protests. You will find those people. So to tar the whole people protesting for the same
Your argument
brush
was that the right are the snowflakes. I don't see the right coming up with any of these ridiculous acronyms. I don't see them throwing slurs at people.
Yeah, but that's because they use the traditional slurs available to them, Alex.
Like transgendered person.
I would also like, you know, this thing called science.
I do think. Listen. I do think people are allowed to use biological language to describe someone who is biological. If I said, "Call me a cat," and all of a sudden you had to meow at me every time you spoke to me, you think I was insane.
So then why can't people use TERF, which is just a descriptor of the people they're describing?
I mean, this is the problem. You're missing my point. My point is that it's not the right throwing those words around. It's your ilk. It's the left throwing those words around.
But it's not the left claiming that the right are getting angry over words.
It is.
It is. Language, Kai. TERF is not biological language.
And this is what it really boils down to, is it's the rejection of biology. You know, that gathering of transgender activists was the biggest group of science deniers we've ever seen in this country. It is staggering to me that we still have to go back to this point, that this is a debate that should be led by science, not by people's feelings.
Well, actually, that's a really interesting point, because we've now got the junior doctors, 50,000 of them, via the politicised BMA, saying that the Supreme Court is intellectually illiterate.
Yeah. Well, look, listen, I always think it's these small minority of people who ruin it for everyone else. I'm sure most trans people just want to get on with their lives, but there we go. We've got lots more to come tonight on the Saturday 5. Head over to gbnews.com/poll to cast your vote and tell us what you want to see for that Saturday scrap. It's going to be a really big one. And we'll be looking at the interview with Prince Harry after he's just lost that massive legal battle, hasn't he? And he's also claimed the King won't speak to him. The King is very, very sick. We're going to be joined by a former head of Royal Protection. That is going to be a fantastic interview. Don't miss it. You have the Saturday 5 on GB News.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. High pressure in charge, turning quite chilly tonight. The winds are switching direction to a northerly airstream, so filtering cold air all the way down from the Arctic across the country. You can see that in the pressure pattern, but with high pressure largely nearby, many places will be dry. And it's a dry evening and night to come across much of the country, though that northerly breeze does bring showers across northeast Scotland, down the eastern coast of England through the night. Elsewhere, dry with clear spells, and it will turn quite chilly, a much widely chilly night compared to of late. Temperatures in single figures, a touch of frost for the Glens of Scotland, perhaps the countryside of Northern Ireland as well. But a sunny start here away from the east coast, whilst it will be quite chilly and cloudy here with showers. So if we take a look at the details first thing Sunday morning, frequent showers across Orkney and Shetland down into eastern Scotland. Showers falling as snow over the higher ground. Sunny for western Scotland, largely dry with sunny spells for Northern Ireland, Northern England too, but the east seeing those showers which continue to feed down towards East Anglia. But the vast majority of us, it will be a dry start with sunny spells, so rather fresh. And then through the day, showers continue down the eastern side of the UK, but they will become fewer and further between as we move through into the afternoon. But a chilly northerly breeze here. Temperatures really struggling 8 to 9 Celsius at best in one or two spots. Best of the sunshine in the west and southwest, where highs will reach around 17 degrees, so much lower compared to what we've seen of late. Another chilly start on Monday morning, some patchy frost in places. Showers a little bit more confined to the southeast through the afternoon on Bank Holiday Monday. Most places dry with sunny spells, best of the sunshine across Scotland, and temperatures again near average. But there are signs it does start to warm up later next week. See you again soon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches, and the dramatic fly-past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. I'm Alex Armstrong, alongside Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Peter Barnes, and Kai Wilshaw. Tonight on the show,
get ready to laugh at more lefty lunacy with triggered tantrums.
We will reveal which head-to-head you voted for.
In our first big interview, we're talking about that developing story with Prince Harry.
In a bunch of 5, we will tell you about the stories you missed.
And from 8 p.m, we'll have one more big interview, and one of our favourite parts, I think, we'll hear from you in Ask the 5.
Yep, it's 7 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. Yeah, welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. If you've missed it, it's been one of the fieriest shows we have, so I know it's going to carry on that way throughout the next hour. And of course, part of this show is your comments. So go to gbnews.com/yoursay. And while you're there, please get your questions in for Ask the 5. I have been writing them all down, and we are going to read them out very soon. We've also got our scrap coming up, and we've got the results for you here. 22% of you wanted to see us debate if the Tories are finished. 2% of you, not a lot of you, wanted us debate whether Ofcom, I think it's Ofsted, should back off to save teachers' mental health. And 72% of you, 73% of you, my producer's now telling me, said you want us to debate whether net zero projects should be banned from the countryside. But before we start tearing each other apart and get to that big debate, it's just Saturday Night News with Sophia Wensler.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines from the GB Newsroom. Nigel Farage has hailed an unprecedented reform win after beating the Tories and Labour at Thursday's local elections. Writing in the Telegraph newspaper, the Reform UK leader said nothing will ever be the same again. Two-party politics at both local and national level is over. Mr Farage called it the death of the Conservative Party after Reform picked up 10 councils and more than 600 seats in Thursday's poll. Labour Minister Lucy Powell appeared to dismiss the rape gang scandal as a little trumpet during an appearance on BBC Radio 4's Any Question programme last night. During a discussion with political commentator Tim Montgomery, who asks if she's seen a documentary on rape gangs, she replies, "Want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Let's get the dog whistle out, shall we?" A Reform spokesman has called her comments abhorrent, saying it's quite clear that Labour aren't taking the mass rape of British women and girls seriously. Meanwhile, Lucy Powell has now responded with a post on X, saying, "In the heat of a discussion on any question, I would like to clarify that I regard issues of child exploitation and grooming with the utmost seriousness. I'm sorry if this was unclear. I was challenging the political point scoring around it, not the issue itself. As a constituency MP, I've dealt with these horrendous cases. This government is acting to get to the truth and deliver justice." In other news, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has congratulated Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on his election victory. The left-wing Labour government won today after a tense election shaped by concerns over housing, the cost of living and the shadow of Donald Trump. Voters swung in favour of Albanese, the incumbent Prime Minister, over the opposition Liberal National Coalition led by Peter Dutton. Now, Ofsted's proposed report cards should be opposed to protect the mental health of school staff. That's according to a union. It comes as the National Association of Head Teachers is set to launch legal action against Ofsted over the new school report cards, which are due to be introduced in the autumn after they got rid of its old 1 or 2 word judgments. Elsewhere, Donald Trump has again jokingly suggested that he would like to be the next pope by posting a spoof image of himself. The US president published an AI-generated photograph of himself dressed in the papal regalia on his Truth Social platform. The picture, depicting the president draped in white robes wearing a gold crucifix, comes just 11 days after the death of Pope Francis. And TV presenter Lorraine Kelly has revealed that she needs to undergo surgery after sharing a video from her hospital bed. Posting on social media, the 65-year-old said she had not been feeling all that well for a little while and needed surgery to remove her ovaries and fallopian tubes. The ITV host reassured fans that she was going to be totally fine and praised the hospital staff. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. It's a very, very lively show tonight, I can tell you that for sure. Please keep your comments coming into gbnews.com/yoursay. But next up, let's crack on with tonight's main event. Yes, it's the Saturday Scrap Tonight's main event. Since stepping into government, Labour and Ed Miliband have been powering on with the net zero agenda, lighting with new solar farms and energy projects across the country. But Reform UK is now fighting back. Richard Tice announced his party will do everything possible to block renewable developments in the countryside. So we're debating, thanks to your votes, whether we should block net zero in the countryside. Seconds out, it's round one. Over to you, Will.
Yeah, I'll take this away. Thanks, Alex. We've established that Kai is more popular when he isn't speaking, so I'll do him a favour and extend out that period a little longer. When I drive through the English countryside and I'm forced to look at those wind turbines, those dark satanic mills of the modern age, I weep. I weep. They are an affront to everything that makes this country great. And what Reform is doing is welcome news. I just hope they'll be able to do it. There's a few reasons for this. Number one, and the most obvious argument we have to make in any climate change policy in the United Kingdom, is that they are entirely symbolic. They won't make a single iota of difference to the global climate crisis, if that's the stupid terminology you want to use. Number two is they don't work. Anyone who's been looking at continental Europe and Spain and Portugal over the last week will tell you that a week after Portugal boasted that they went 100% renewable, they had the worst blackouts that Europe has seen in decades. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about why we shouldn't be relying on what is an unreliable power source, I don't know what does. But the thing that really annoys me about this, thing that breaks my heart, is that this is not just a stupid environmental policy. This is an attack on what makes England England. This is an attack on the green and pleasant lands of England, the rolling fields. The things that we love about this country are being polluted by these awful, ineffective, absolute disasters, and we need to stop it as soon as possible.
No, I mean, Will, it won't surprise you to know that I completely disagree. These net zero projects in the countryside actually are a golden opportunity, and I'll tell you for why. We know that food production is a huge carbon emitter for good reasons, because we all need it. On the other hand, also, farmers in the UK for too long have been maligned and attacked when they are actually the protectors of our countryside. And all of these projects are simply an opportunity to continue that role. Now, it builds on big progress, actually, because since 1990, emissions by farms have reduced by 12%, and this hasn't had a detrimental impact on production either. In the dairy sector, for instance, increased milk production has gone up by 11%, but with 21% fewer cows. Now, there are ways that farmers know already to protect our countryside by turning unused land into income, rewilding, preserving habitats, while also contributing in new ways to the British economy. I don't see how you can all malign this. It's a win-win.
Kai, you haven't addressed my points, but you may still be concussed from your accident last week, so I'll put it down to that. If farmers have been maligned, you're exactly right. So what you're doing is you're forcing them into an expensive new boondoggle that they don't want to do. Here's the thing, Kai. If they do want to put those awful monstrosities on their land, you know what? They're free to do it. But I bet you if they're not being forced to do it, they won't do it. That's the thing. This is being run by the government as a state intervention because people don't want this. It's being forced upon them.
OK, right. I want to bring it out to the rest of the panel. Before I do that, I want to read this news article that we saw today. Supposedly, Dame Mary Archer has been sacked from the board of Ed Miliband's Iran's net zero department in what has been described by The Telegraph as an attempt to suppress all opposition to his policies. Oh, it's a bit of a nasty. It's getting nasty on net zero now, isn't it? The cracks are really showing, aren't they, Renee?
It has to, because there is no sense to this. If we want to be a self-sufficient country in a world that is becoming more dangerous and more fractured, and we're being told all of the time we might be in World War, whatever it is, 3 soon, we have to be self-sufficient in food and energy. As the Norway minister said this week, you don't go and borrow money from the bank when you've got gold bars under your bed.
Absolutely.
And we have gold bars under our bed, we have oil, we have gas, and we have fields aplenty to grow and keep our food. But if we keep putting solar panels on it, if we keep destroying it, we will even have to ship in our food as well.
Yeah, Peter, this is a Tory policy.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I think the Conservatives have got this awfully wrong. But I do think this is a policy agenda that was wrong from the very beginning, purely because it should have actually gone down the kind of tech route from the very beginning. There was a great moment where Britain was actually leading in the development of green technology. Unfortunately, we just decided to sell it off or give it away for some unbeknownst reason. Britain could have led the environmentalist movement, not the net zero movement, but the environmentalist movement, around the world. It could have actually led it, but they would have done it in a smarter way by investing in technologies that would counteract most kind of climate change issues, which the public still care about. We have to keep remembering that. They care about wildlife, they care about the green and pleasant lands that you want to defend, but we have to... The way that this government and multiple governments has always been stick and never carrot. That is a big mistake, and I do think that I don't really get this whole they look terrible and all the rest of it, and I don't mind them. I don't really mind them. I actually think they're incredibly British because they are the stark contrast between an old world and a new world. I mean, look around London.
Let me just come back to Kai very quickly.
Do you think that fields full of black sheets instead of grass looks good?
Well, I think it's a change. The same argument was made when people put the railways through the green and pleasant land.
So
typical, but that's... I'm just
pushing for change.
No, I'm just saying that the arguments you're making...
Conservatism?
Well, I'm not... But no, if you think about it, the Conservatism was actually the voice of the Tories
should chop down that tree in their logo and replace it with a wind farm instead. Kai, look, your political hero, Sir Tony Blair, he's come out and said it's doomed.
It's come up.
Is it doomed? Is net zero doomed?
No, it's not. Obviously, there needs to be a recalibration and sort of an understanding that there's ways of doing this that don't take away from other forms of growth, right? Like, actually, we should be drilling in the North Sea, but we should also be investing in green energy because, as Peter rightly says, it is a big opportunity for Britain, and trust me, other big countries, including China.
I'll say this. I want our country to have its own energy. So it's critical to our sovereignty that we can produce our own energy. What it is about net zero, and this is where you're trying to straw man the debate, is that net zero is a policy aimed at destroying... I mean, it has destroyed so many people's bank accounts, particularly the poorest people. Most British people don't have a problem with the green initiative, i.e. converting into green energy. People don't want their skies polluted. People don't want to be choking on pollution. However, they want a sensible transition to that, not where they're punished by 2030 saying, sorry, you've got to sell your car, you've got to change your boiler. This is a luxury. Net zero is a doomed luxury.
And Alex, this is what really annoys me, Kai, about Labor and the argument you've just made is you can't have growth and net zero. They are fundamentally incompatible. They are fundamentally incompatible because growth relies on cheap energy, and that's always been the case at every point in human history.
The prime example of that is the new Heathrow runway. The U-turn on the Heathrow runway, it's the green runway. Absolute nonsense.
And at the same time, Labour MPs are advocating for a Pakistani airport. I know. Absolutely bonkers. This is politics in 2025 in Britain, everybody. Anyway, look, still to come tonight.
Just heard the news that trans people are now banned from football. This is crazy.
Yeah, we've got this week's triggered tantrums. Trust me, they get nuttier every week.
Amazing.
And as Prince Harry loses his legal battle and says the King won't speak to him, we speak to a former head of royal protection on what's next for the Duke. Don't go anywhere. This is Saturday 5, the liveliest show on Saturdays.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Can you find love in your twilight years? That's what we're asking this morning. Broadcaster Ryan Mark Parsons and former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe join us now. Good to see you both this morning. Anne, let's start with you. Is 70 too old to date, do you think?
70 isn't too old for anything. Everybody ages at different rates, both mentally, physically, in the sorts of things they like. When you say to me, is 80 too late to, is 70, well, we might even say 80. It's too late to find love. The answer is just look around you. Lots of people have. But let me say right away, no, that's not an invitation. I've absolutely no ambitions in that area at all.
Ryan Mark, what do you make of it? Do we need to stop putting a bar on ageing and dating?
No, I don't think we should. I think once you get to such an old age, you really should be looking for love internally. I mean, you should self-love. I just don't see the point at 70 years old to be searching for love at that point. I think you should go on a holiday somewhere. I think you should find love with the sunshine and a cocktail, perhaps, instead of looking for a man or a woman. I think at what point do you decide that, you know, love is not going to come around knocking on your door? And I think probably at the age of 70, that is when you should decide it's time to give up. I'm 24, living in London. I know how incredibly hard it is to find love. I don't know how anyone who has wrinkles and grey hair at the age of 70, over someone like me, could perhaps find love. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a nice idea, but I think it's not feasible. And also, I don't think there's any point at that age.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Yeah, welcome back to the Saturday 5. As ever, I want to hear what you have to say. gbnews.com/you're saying. Get your questions in for Ask the 5. Some great messages so far, by the way. Let's have a quick look here. Grumpy Grandad, a favourite of the channel, says, Kai, did you remember your beaver suit? And we do a lot of beaver news in the next hour. So you're not going to miss that.
I did promise to appear in a beaver suit. It's been a bit of a challenge sourcing it, but you will be glad that I'm on the case and that I have some beaver stories for you later.
Yeah.
Beavering away.
Beavering away. Yep, OK. Now, Prince Harry has admitted he wants to reconcile with his family in a bombshell interview. Who would have thought it?
Good luck.
Speaking after the Court of Appeal's decision not to overturn the ruling on his security in the UK, he blamed the King and the royal family over their failure to protect him, supposedly. Take a look at this.
I would love reconciliation with my family. I don't know how much longer my father has. You know, he won't speak to me because of this security stuff. Ultimately, this whole thing could be resolved through him, not necessarily by intervening, but by stepping aside, allowing the experts to do what is necessary. I have had it described to me, once people knew about the facts, that this is an good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up.
OK, to discuss this, I'm pleased to welcome former head of Royal Protection of Scotland Yard, Di Davies. Di, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Listen, you know, there's a lot of hoo-ha about this, but I don't think many people know what goes into royal protection. Would you be able to give us a brief understanding of that, and then what he's actually asking for and why it's so out of the question?
Well, a very good evening. This is a first, being with the famous five. Essentially, members of the royal family, in my day, there were 22. Each one of them had 24-hour protection. And that means that where they live, where they travel abroad, officers from royalty protection went with them. These officers are highly trained. In my day, there weren't many females. I'm glad to say now there are many, many more, and they're trained to the same level. There are experienced officers who blend in as far as possible. Unlike other foreign protection groups, they actually blend in and trying to be inconspicuous. They're there to protect each and one of the royal family. And before they go anywhere, a full risk assessment is always carried out. It doesn't matter if they're going back to the same venue. Each venue, each travel trip, each appearance is carefully assessed. And again, each one of them is graded according to the intelligence and information. RAVAC, the committee that Harry has got the hump with, wasn't in existence in my day. It was a much smaller effort, but it is, as I understand it, comprising of experts from a variety of different fields. Yes, there is a member from the royal household, but there's a member from the Metropolitan Police, security services. They're all highly experienced, and they go on the latest upgraded information. This case has been going back since 2000. Now, I don't know if that's been updated, where we are today in 2005, but I would assure Harry that every time he came here, he would be protected, firstly, if he was on his father's business or a member of the working royal family. When he's not here, and he's here for commercial reasons, each visit would be assessed and a risk assessment carried out, including what venues he's going to, who he is meeting with. But he is being, in my opinion, disingenuous when he says, you know, totally, I only have private security. On each visit, as I understand it, a royalty protection liaison officer is there with them or can give them advice. So if there's any kind of iota of intelligence and information that would cause greater concern that currently exists, then they would do the appropriate. Nobody in their right mind would let Harry suffer it knowingly if there was a risk more than is graded at the moment. Most of his aunties and uncles have lost that now, including his cousins. Very, very few children now get royalty protection, rightly or wrongly. I have my own views on that. I always say, if you're going to do it properly, 24 hours a day. So that's the scenario, if you like.
Interesting.
So we look after them in their palaces, when they're going anywhere, and all the rest of it.
I mean, you know, there'll be a lot of people today saying, you know, he's throwing his toys out of the pram over this, that, you know, he wants special treatment and that he chose, and he and Meghan chose to leave the working royal. Do you think that he should have security, or at least the same level as other working royals, Di, in your assessment?
Well, not when he's living in Los Angeles. I certainly don't. And of course, the cost issue would be huge, as well as getting the practical difficulties that they have no authority in America. If and when he decides commercially to go somewhere, he has a team, and as I understand it, the gentlemen that you're showing now, they're all ex-royalty protection. So they know the score. And if they're as good as I think they are, they would liaise with the local police or the local military. Now, let's face it, Harry's decided to have a very high profile. I always advise, as a security advisor, keep a low profile. Keep your name off the papers, keep your family off the name, and all the rest of it. He's chosen, rightly or wrongly, it's his prerogative, to actually go wide on this. And I've always said this on a number of interviews, there's a truth, and then there's Harry's truth. I've no doubt he actually believes what he's saying. I don't, personally.
Di, this isn't directly related to Harry, but your comments that these officers are highly experienced and highly trained sparked a thought. We've seen controversy in the United States with their Secret Service for the President, allegations that woke DEI agendas have compromised the standards within the Secret Service. Have you seen any evidence that these sorts of DEI progressive policies have potentially compromised the standards in the protection for the royal family?
No, I certainly haven't. As I say, in my day, back in the 90s, mid-90s, there were very few women. I'm delighted to say that the women I had then were as good as any of the men there, and I'm delighted. If they pass the same kind of fitness, the firearms, the advanced driving, the advanced medical, you name it, these officers, they're trained how to jump out of a helicopter, out of a car. They are fantastically trained individuals, and yet they can still maintain that diplomacy and tact and good humour the Metropolitan Police were famous for, certainly in my day. I have a huge admiration for the vast majority. In my day, we sent them down to Hereford to train with the Special Air Service, so they really are as best you can be. But we do it in the British way, and that's low-key, advancing. Intelligence is the key to good protection, not having people who look like gorillas, in my view.
Yeah, I just really wanted to ask, what is the mood on the ground with these everybody involved? Because if you think about it, Harry's undermining years of expertise. These people are at the top of the game, as you say, and yet Harry's basically saying, "You're talking nonsense. I'm so at threat," and all the rest of it. It can't be good for morale if you think about it.
Well, I think the vast majority are used to Harry. Let's face it, this has been going on, attacking the press. He has an agenda, and clearly he feels he's right to have that agenda. It's not for me to comment about his thoughts and what he wants or doesn't want. He's chosen a path, rightly or wrongly, and I think he has to live with that. I would do anything to protect him if there was any intelligence or any information. I've worked with the LAPD, I worked with the Secret Service or liaised with them in America. In my day, they were very good and they had excellent intelligence, and that intelligence is shared. But we really have got to stop saying he wouldn't get protection when he comes to this country. He chose sometimes to stay in a hotel. He chose to travel by train with the rest of us plebs. Now, if I was protecting him, I wouldn't do that. I'd take him in an armoured car. You can hire armoured cars from BMW, Mercedes, and I'd go in a convoy. One of the key things, and again, he mentions his mother. I happened to be the OCU commander when his poor mother passed away, driven by a drunken driver. And the fact that he and one or two other idiots come along and actually allege this was some kind of conspiracy, I hope we put that to bed a long time ago. But he still regurgitates that nonsense. And the same in America when he decided to go in a yellow cab. He had no idea. No protection officer of mine would do that. And if they did, they wouldn't be in post very often. So there are so many areas. I could spend hours discussing this, and I do, because I lecture now on the history of attacks on royal families. I can assure you, very rare for Metropolitan Police officers in this department to pull out their firearms. In fact, the last time I can remember it is 1974, when Princess Anne was actually attacked and her brave protection officer was shot 4 times. So let's get it in perspective, and so-called experts, well, know what you're talking about historically and present day.
Di, thank you so much for that. That's been so interesting. And you're so right that there are so many good people in the protection services with that advanced driving techniques, the firearms training. But they're not the people making the decisions here, is it? And I just wanted to pick up on what Harry said about an establishment stitch-up. Do you share my view that there is a bit of a sense, perhaps, that the UK government is taking revenge and being a bit petty in response to the way Harry's been trashing the royal family? Shouldn't they take the high road and accept that Harry will always be Harry, but we would hate it if something happened and he should have advanced more protection?
Well, I would look at each case very carefully. I wouldn't rush to make any judgments, but I would rely on the intelligence services. Let's face it, our intelligence services are as good as anyone in the world. They've prevented over 33 terrorist attacks, to my knowledge, and probably more that we'll never know. So I have faith in them, and I also have faith in Rabbit. They are extremely experienced people, and there's only, as far as I know, one member of the royal household who, again, is there to represent the household. in my view, this should have been settled years ago, one way or the other, in private. The fact that, as always, he and sometimes his wife choose to go publicly on these issues, in my view, is foolish. He likes to go to court. This time he's lost, and he has to accept that. I agree, if the situation changes and there is a real threat to him or his family, I would be the first to say, let's protect him when he comes to this country. But most of the time, 99.5, he chooses to go to other countries which are far more dangerous than we'll ever be. I think we've got to have a dose of realism here. And I don't see why you and I as taxpayers should pay for this multi-millionaire to actually fly around the world at your and my expense.
Well, expert analysis there from Di Davies. What a fantastic interview. Former head of Royal Protection at Scotland Yard there, Di Davies. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us. But still to come tonight...
Just so proud of them. So beautiful. Oh, I don't know. I wasn't expecting that one.
I don't know if I can cope. I don't think you have to take me off it, honestly. It's this week's Triggered Tantrums. But next, as Reform UK gains 677 councillors, Nigel Farage launches a Doge-style plan to cut waste to save cash-strapped councils. We'll be diving into that in our Bunch of Five. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're heading south for some holiday sunshine, the best bet is Greece at the moment. Sunny spells, also fine in Italy, but Iberia continues on the same theme that we've seen during the last few months. Low pressure, spells of rain and showers, especially for parts of Portugal, northwest Spain, and into the south of France, some heavy downpours, those reaching northern Italy. But for the rest of Italy, cloudy spells, but otherwise largely dry, mostly fine in Greece, and it continues that way next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. High pressure in charge, turning quite chilly tonight. The winds are switching direction to a northerly airstream, so filtering cold air all the way down from the Arctic across the country. You can see that in the pressure pattern, but with high pressure largely nearby, many places will be dry, and it's a dry evening and night to come across much of the country, though that northerly breeze does bring showers across northeast Scotland, down the eastern coast of England through the night. Elsewhere, dry with clear spells, and it will turn quite chilly, a much widely chilly night compared to of late. Temperatures in single figures, a touch of frost for the Glens of Scotland, perhaps the countryside of Northern Ireland as well. But a sunny start here away from the east coast, whilst it will be quite chilly and cloudy here with showers. So if we take a look at the details first thing Sunday morning, frequent showers across Orkney and Shetland down into eastern Scotland. Showers falling as snow over the higher ground. Sunny for western Scotland, largely dry with sunny spells for Northern Ireland, Northern England too, but the east seeing those showers which continue to feed down towards East Anglia. But the vast majority of us, it will be a dry start with sunny spells, so rather fresh. And then through the day, showers continue down the eastern side of the UK, but they will become fewer and further between as we move through into the afternoon. But a chilly northerly breeze here, temperatures really struggling 8 to 9 Celsius at best in one or two spots. Best of the sunshine in the west and southwest, where highs will reach around 17 degrees, so much lower compared to what we've seen of late. Another chilly start on Monday morning, some patchy frost in places. Showers a little bit more confined to the southeast through the afternoon on Bank Holiday Monday. Most places dry with sunny spells, best of the sunshine across Scotland, and temperatures again near average. But there are signs it does start to warm up later next week. See you again soon.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody, the liveliest show on this weekend. I'm telling you, you're not going to find a more heated debate on telly tonight. But anyway, getting on with things, now it's time for this. Yes, this is Bunch of Five. Will, you're going to kick us off tonight. What have you got for us?
An update from the colonies, Alex. Earlier today, Australia went to the polls. The left-wing Labor government, led by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, was re-elected for another 3 years. It's an extraordinary result. It's a very decisive result, a landslide, which wasn't expected. This is the first time that a first-term government has had a swing towards them since Federation in Australia. It is astonishing, the magnitude of what has happened, and I think there are lessons for Conservatives in the UK. Number one, it was always going to be hard for the Liberal Party, Liberal and National Party in Australia. There hasn't been a first-term government booted out in Australia in almost 100 years. So they needed to get everything right, and they didn't. They had a mediocre leader who was afraid to make the big calls, and the Conservatives got scared. They ran away from the culture wars. Peter Dutton didn't answer the classic "what is a woman" question after the UK Supreme Court decision. They didn't present a compelling vision for economic reform in a country which desperately needs it, and they saw the effect that Trump had on the Canadian election, and they ran away from any sort of strong right-wing Conservative approach, and they ended up just being Labor light. There is a lesson for that for the right-wing parties in this country.
Absolutely. I think the Tories are still learning their lesson given the local elections wipeout. I mean, Kemi Badenoch won't commit to a statutory rape gang investigation. She says we need to have one now, but she won't commit to having one if she's elected. And also, I don't think she's committed yet to leaving the ECHR. These are really easy wins. Do you not think this is where the Tory party's doomed to fail? Because it just constantly has to appease its left wing.
Well, I'm not being funny. Nigel Farage backtracked on the grooming gangs thing, so let's be honest about that.
He's pledged for
No, he didn't actually. He wrote back. That manifesto. You mean 4 bullet points?
Peter,
4 bullet points is not a manifesto.
Peter, it's this whataboutery.
Whataboutery? That's all we get from reform is attack. I'm not seeing a vision from reform.
But why didn't you answer the question? What's the vision from the Tories?
Don't get me wrong. I think the Tories are just as bad on this issue. I'm not defending the Conservatives on this issue at all. But what I want to see is reform, who are running around saying you're going to be the next government. Give me some plans. Give me some detail. This is real serious stuff.
Okay.
I'm the host of the show.
Stuff.
We need to actually move on.
Okay, so my Bunch 5 this week, there was an exhibition that was going to start this week, actually, called Licence to Offend. And it actually was the cartoons of the top 16 cartoonists in newspapers in this country. People like Morton, Mack, Pugh, Morland, from every paper, from The Guardian to The Times. And just as it was about to launch, it got cancelled in case it offended people. I think we've got one of the cartoons here. I don't know.
I know we don't.
No. Why? Because it might offend people. Okay, fair enough.
Thanks, Ofcom.
Well, you know, what are we scared of now? Surely, if you went to see Licence to Offend, you'd be
willing to be offended.
You might be offended.
You know? It's a really big problem, and I do believe it does sort of span the political sphere now. People are very easily offended. No one's got any tough skin anymore. And it's just mad that it's been cancelled, and it speaks to why it existed in the first place.
I think there's a much bigger issue here, because let's talk about Charlie Hebdo. This was about a cartoon. And I have to admit, this was a moment where Just Sweet Charlie was supposed to be a great moment of defending free speech, free expression. That disappeared quicker than you can count up to 10. It was absolutely shameful, the backtracking of that. That was a real moment which, you know, this human race could actually have pushed for actual liberalism, pushed for free speech, and it just failed.
We still have a teacher in hiding.
Yes, bonkers.
Similar episode.
Okay.
No, we do, Kai. You might be shaking your head, but we do.
I agree. It's ridiculous.
All right. Too scared to talk about radical Islam. That's the issue.
Well, I've got a story that Ed Miliband wouldn't want you to see. He definitely wouldn't want to hear about this one, would he? This headline be kept very, very quiet. Antarctica has its ice sheet has grown for the first time in decades. And I think this tells us more than anything that the net zero scam is well and truly doomed, because our ice caps, we were told by countless politicians, on Al Gore to Bill Gates to Ed Miliband, that our ice caps were going to be gone by this time 20 years ago. In fact, I was given that propaganda at school. We were forced to watch that kind of rubbish and told that there'd be floods in the city of London. Well, that hasn't happened either. The reality is the ice sheets are growing.
Do you know
there we go.
I think the ice sheets are climate deniers.
I think they might be as well.
You mentioned propaganda, Alex, and I can bet that you didn't first see that story on the BBC.
No, I didn't. The great thing about this story, Will, is it's in a really obscure thing called SciTech Daily, and they have got all the research in here, by the way. They have put all the research in here because it's a science website, but it's not on the BBC. Why is that, Kai?
Sorry. Scientists actually are cautioning that the Antarctic is one of the most complex habitats.
Suddenly it's a complex This doesn't know what to say.
Alex, save me the crowing on one spot of good news when you have the melting of the Greenland ice sheet, the death of coral reefs, the Amazon rainforest dying.
The Great Barrier Reef is bouncing back, by the way. What about happening to the ozone layer?
You all look so completely ridiculous when the world is burning in a few decades.
Coral reefs around the world are now repairing themselves. They're coping with whatever's happening, because that's what nature does.
OK, moving on. Peter, what have you got for us this week?
Well, I find an issue within the local elections where, I'm not going to talk about reform for a change, because I think there's a real problem, and that is with the Labour Party's kind of bending over backwards to get the Muslim vote, and how that has actually created a very big problem, and that is the growth of sectarian politics and the rise of the kind of pro-Gaza MPs. And in these local elections, we saw a key number of candidates who now councillors who have very, very dangerous views, and it has all come about because the Labour Party have created a two-tier society. They have pandered and pandered and pandered, and it is a real dangerous problem that this is creeping in. The Islamification of the United Kingdom is of major concern, and it is not being dealt with at all.
Did you see the 18-year-old?
Yes, that is absolutely shameful.
Who doesn't want men and women to mix?
No, I completely agree. The rise of sectarian politics has no place in this society. But to put that at Labour's door is completely ridiculous. Of course it is.
The three candidates came from being in the Labour Party.
But also, above and beyond that, it is Labour who has pushed the identity politics nonsense for over a decade now, which has led to this position. And you know what? It's the same identity politics which is ultimately going to see them booted out in favour of Islamic candidates, which is what's going to happen with Red Streeting.
Okay. Well, we have to move on to your story. We're running out of time.
Must we? No, we must. Peter didn't want to talk about reform, but I'm going to very briefly. Farage has pledged to ban working from home in councils that reform has taken over and slash wasteful spending in a Doge-style sort of bonfire of the quangos. Now, this is where reform is going to actually have to realise its lofty ambitions and realise that actually they'll come into contact with some hard truths in governing, and it's going to be very difficult for them.
Yes, he put these councillors, these workers for the council on DEI and climate on notice. He said, you better start assessing your future careers. And this is ridiculous, because we have been bankrupting councils across the country on DEI initiatives.
It's not just DEI.
Bonkers.
Can I just say one thing? Of course. As whatever you think about DEI and climate, that is no way to speak to people who might well lose their living in a few weeks. That is
Okay,
he is not on the side of work.
Sorry, we have to go. But next up is your Triggered Tantrums. You're live with the Saturday 5 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
From a PETA point of view, I see you guys are in the newspapers today, PETA, and it's about the definition of a rat. Have you seen this story?
Yeah, I have indeed. And, rats are individuals. And of course, we want everyone to respect all animals. But one point I would like to raise is that, we mention animals who are going extinct. There are over 2,000 species right now that are on the endangered list.
Rats
and there are
won't be one
thousands
of them.
more. Well, rats are important as well, but we're here to talk about, the dire wolves. And it's important to point out that we need to think about what's going to happen to these animals once they're released back into the wild, because this is really complicated.
Yes,
and we need to remember that humans don't have a good track record of our treatment of wolves. Thousands are being culled as we speak due to perceived overpopulation problems. So why are scientists trying to bring back more of these animals when their cousins are being blasted out of their homes? It doesn't make sense, and we need to focus our efforts on protecting animals that are already here.
I get that. Just to say, a rat, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is a small rodent. The noun can mean also an unpleasant person who deceives others or is not loyal. And you guys think that's unfair to rats, and you want it redesignated and redescribed. And I don't know if James Cagney would appreciate with you, because I think when he was going, "You dirty rat, you dirty rat," I don't think that he was really wanting anybody kind or nice coming to him or whatever, but that's historic film.
Well, look, this is a completely friendly request, and we want to encourage everyone to respect all animals. Rats are lovely creatures, they're intelligent, and they're actually very clean. So, this was a friendly request to the Oxford Dictionary, just to right a simple wrong.
Okay.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Coming up from 8 p.m. on Saturday 5 Extra, we're interviewing Andrew Ward. He's a farmer. We're going to be talking about why farmers are pitching up tents to avoid inheritance tax, as well as Ask the Five, because you've been sending loads of questions in, and I'm going to get through as many as I can. Keep sending them to gbnews.com/yoursay. But now it's time for Triggered Tantrums. You have the best ticket, the front row seat to this week's Clowns of Collapse, Acrobats of Absurdity, and Tumbling Over Zilch. Just you wait. This is just absolutely phenomenal, this segment. Will, what have you got for us?
Well, I've got the queen of woke triggered tantrum heroes, of course, and that's Meghan Markle. I actually had a tweet this week that went viral. I put a challenge out to people. I shared a teaser for a video that or a podcast she's doing with some woke American lefty, and I said to the masses, I bet you cannot get to the end of this clip. And everyone from Andrew Neil and Constance Kisson took the test, and I can tell you right now, very few managed to pass. We've put a shorter version together, so hopefully you can get through it. Let's have a look.
My gosh, I work so hard. Not about the grandeur of a gesture. It's about I see you.
Are you in love now more than ever? More than you've ever been?
Yeah.
It's so insufferable. It's the I would H this, H that.
She thinks she works hard. I wanted to come and tag me for that day.
Damn right.
No sleep by the end of it.
She's working hard sending her kids 4,000 emails by the time they turn 18, which is one of the most psychotic things that you can do as a parent, I think. But each to their own.
At least get offline.
The one thing I will say is this woman has been able to fleece some of the more money out of some of the biggest companies in the world and produce absolutely nothing. In a way, that is quite impressive if you think about it.
She's got HRH in front of her name.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
She shouldn't be using that title.
No,
she did agree with the Queen not to use it, but there we go. Insufferable. Renee, what have you got for us?
OK, I've got lovely India Willoughby, who says she's a woman. Just watch.
Just heard the news that trans people are now banned from football. This is crazy, absolutely insane. Trans people haven't done anything Yet we're being stigmatised and demonised.
Right. You have to bear in mind that this is a man who says they could pass a pizza bob as a woman. I don't know how to break it to him. The thing is, they can still play football.
Yeah.
They can just play it with their own biological sex.
There's nothing
no
wrong
one's
with
stopping
that.
them play sport.
Yeah. Men won't stop them playing it either.
No.
What they don't want is big burly men going after women. Going after women in their sport, do they? I wouldn't want my theoretical daughter playing with a bloke. Would you? This is just common sense yet again. And loads of those competitions we've seen women beaten by men by such dramatic margins. Not only are they changing the rules at their own whim, but they're ruining it for women who fought for those rights for hundreds of years.
These narcissists have no shame, and they will stand on that podium, 6'6" of them, and take away that gold medal from a young woman and smile. They have no shame. So someone has to do it because they're not going to step aside.
Yeah, Kai, come on. We've got to get real here. This is a good decision from is it the FA that made this decision?
The FA, netball and football.
Out of thousands of football players, or is it 20 trans people? It is completely irrelevant. And what is a real shame, though, and what we talked about after the legal ruling by the Supreme Court, what I expressed a hope for, that you all agreed, is that this doesn't culturally change things and make people attack trans people more, speak ill of trans people. And actually, what I think we're seeing today is that has become the case.
No.
The rhetoric against trans people has only gotten worse.
You want to talk about rhetoric? Let's talk about the threats to J.K. Rowling. Let's talk about the threats to women, who have dared to say, I don't want a man in my bathroom. It is absolutely ridiculous, the double standard that we hear from the trans lobby and all these other supporters of it. Let's be perfectly clear. It was not the right that wanted any of this. Yeah. The left came along and said, you know what, we're just going to blow everything up because we want to pander to people. We want to indulge a nonsense. And more importantly, why this Supreme Court ruling is very important is because if it had gone the other way, a scientific falsehood would have become a foundational principle. That is really important because once you start lying in that context, you can start rewriting anything you like. And this is why the trans question is so important. It is about truth. And the trans lobby do not like it. Well, and it's about time they grew up.
Well, on that, I think you said that brilliantly, Peter. Well, on my triggered tantrum this week, I do love a British triggered tantrum. And it's the brilliant Sir John Curtis. He's obviously one of the top pollsters in the country's analytical mind, has had this brutal takedown of the Education Secretary. Have a look at this.
We did secure a massive majority at the general election, and we fight on
35% of the vote, the lowest share of the vote of any government with a majority in British history.
I mean, we've got our system. We fought and won on that basis.
Your party conference voted against it in 2022.
Well, we don't have. We're not advocating for any change in the electoral system, but
I'm surprised.
I'm not.
That was ironic, Bridget.
What a legend, honestly. That is just absolutely fantastic. Just purely stating the facts. It was, wasn't it? It was absolutely
does nobody see the irony here that you lot are all Bridget Phillipson? Because you're all doing exactly the same thing as Reform supporters. You're doing the exact same thing. You're doing the exact same thing. The hypocrisy is there. It's just there. I'm sorry, it's there. No, because it's just it's laughable.
I think it's ironic, isn't it, that it's the Education Secretary. He's clearly mathematically illiterate.
Yes. Yeah, there we go. Go on, Kai.
Anybody trying to go toe-to-toe with Curtis, really, I mean, he is the eminent expert in this field, so really Bridget Phillipson was expected to have it handed to her, wasn't she?
I think she was really hoping for an easy ride on Newsnight, as they normally do. But I think it's very telling when we've had so many car crash interviews of Labour ministers lately. We had the Ed Miliband car crash, with the Bridget Phillipson car crash. We've had a lot of car crashes lately. Do you think this is a sign, Will, of where the Labour Party's sort of struggling to communicate with the general public?
Not really. I just think it's a sign they're not particularly competent politicians. They're just not good is the basic answer.
Saying that, though, Kemi Badenoch hasn't had a great time at PMQs, has she?
I don't think she's a particularly competent politician.
That's an understatement of the century.
Well, what do you mean about that? Peter, come on, our audience want to know.
Go on, go to bat.
Are you a generic? Are you Bobby J?
So I didn't vote for either of them. I thought they were both terrible, and I think the Conservative Party has not taken the elections of the leaders seriously since what? Probably Margaret Thatcher. It's absolutely ridiculous. I can't stand it. I hate Tory election season because it brings out the worst of the party. But what I will say is if the people think jumping on Robert Jenrick's Nigel Farage light is going to bring back the Tory vote, they are foolish. This is about trust. The Reform vote has gone, but what's not gone is the stay-at-home Tory. They have not jumped to Reform, and it's about getting that vote back. And that's what Kemi's going after. That is the smart strategy.
Right.
I'd rather Reform
I've got
light
to
than
very quickly read out Paula's comment, and we're going to go. Paula says, I put money into most people would not care if a man wants to wear a dress, each to their own, but throwing it in our face, insulting us and forcing us to change our language is not on. Absolutely spot on. Anyway, don't go anywhere, because coming up, it's Saturday 5 Extra.
Huzzah!
We're getting a pint, you get a pint at home, we're all going to let our hair down, and I promise you, we're going to have a fantastic hour. We've got a big, big interview coming up. You're not going to want to miss that. And look, anything could go on, anything could go wrong, quite frankly. We've got that farmer who's coming on to talk to us about why they're turning their land into campsites to avoid Labour's inheritance tax changes. We will see you after the weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. High pressure in charge, turning quite chilly tonight. The winds are switching direction to a northerly airstream, so filtering cold air all the way down from the Arctic across the country. You can see that in the pressure pattern, but with high pressure largely nearby, many places will be dry, and it's a dry evening and night to come across much of the country, though that northerly breeze does bring showers across northeast Scotland, down the eastern coast of England through the night. Elsewhere, dry with clear spells, and it will turn quite chilly, a much widely chilly night compared to of late. Temperatures in single figures, a touch of frost for the Glens of Scotland, perhaps the countryside of Northern Ireland as well. But a sunny start here away from the east coast, whilst it will be quite chilly and cloudy here with showers. So if we take a look at the details first thing Sunday morning, frequent showers across Orkney and Shetland down into eastern Scotland. Showers falling as snow over the higher ground. Sunny for western Scotland, largely dry with sunny spells for Northern Ireland, Northern England too, but the east seeing those showers which continue to feed down towards East Anglia. But the vast majority of us, it will be a dry start with sunny spells, so rather fresh. And then through the day, showers continue down the eastern side of the UK, but they will become fewer and further between as we move through into the afternoon. But a chilly northerly breeze here, temperatures really struggling 8 to 9 Celsius at best in one or two spots. Best of the sunshine in the west and southwest, where highs will reach around 17 degrees, so much lower compared to what we've seen of late. Another chilly start on Monday morning, some patchy frost in places. Showers a little bit more confined to the southeast through the afternoon on Bank Holiday Monday. Most places dry with sunny spells, best of the sunshine across Scotland, and temperatures again near average. But there are signs it does start to warm up later next week. See you again soon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 6